Practicing cuts is always smart, but we must take time to refine the art. To the 8 that we have, we'll add a small twist as we look at the shoulder, the elbow, and wrist. Oh hey, Lauren back with you. Hi friends, hope you're all doing well. I want to do a follow-up to the 8 cuts video that was from a few weeks ago. Because cutting practice is important, but you can also change a few things about how you cut because you'll end up in different situations where you may not be used to the cut that you have to perform. What does all this mean? Well, as I said in the intro, shoulder, elbow, wrist. What does this mean? Well, you can do cuts in different ways. So if I'm doing a cut from the shoulder, you can see my shoulders moving. I'm doing a cut. I'm getting my whole body moving. There we go. So I've got cuts from the shoulder. There we go. Right? But we've already looked at that. You may be in a situation where you don't have enough space. You don't have enough time to be able to do that cut. Now that's why practicing cuts from the elbow and the wrist are important. Now, doing this is going to be a little sore, a little tiring at first, because you're really engaging certain muscles. You're not using the whole arm, you're really focusing. So if you were to cut from the elbow, for example, you're not really moving this shoulder. There's a little bit of movement, but you're mostly doing this. You'll notice if I cut from the shoulder, big cuts. Cutting from the elbow, there we go. It's smaller. I'm not cutting as much, but I'm mostly using the elbow. And it's a little trickier. You have to remember something very important, and that is that your hand is not going to just grip and be static. Your hand, I mean, if you're gripping with your thumb, and on a saber you kind of put your thumb across the top, let me get in, hold like that. But you are going to grab with the back fingers, and your first 2 fingers, they're gonna have to ease up. This is gonna allow you to maneuver. If you just grip it and you've got that death grip on there, you're gonna need to put your shoulder into the cuts. Now, if you're having trouble, take your hand and put it on your shoulder so that you can feel the movement. So you can hold your shoulder down a bit and limit that, and then now you are cutting from the elbow. You notice that shoulder, big cuts. I can put my hand there if I need to while I'm practicing, just learning. Now I'm cutting more from the elbow. And then, of course, you want to practice cutting from the wrist. If you end up in a close bind position, you can't wind up. You want to be able to deliver an effective cut with just the wrist. So you can start by just, if you want, you can put your other hand on your elbow, and you just wave the sword up and down. You know, actually, this is an exercise that I like to do. I just take the sword, drop, up, drop, up, drop, up. What I'm doing is I'm strengthening these tendons and muscles in the forearm so that they're getting used to the motions. Because if I'm just going to cut from the wrist, okay, here I am. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8's kind of tricky. You do have to start moving the elbow a little bit unless you turn in. So remember in our last video we talked about our cut number 8, our rising cut. We kind of turned the guard. We did that loop to the outside and up. From the wrist, it's really going to pull on those tendons. You're really going to feel it in your arm. If you have trouble, you can flip it. You can roll to your left instead and up. But the whole idea is that if you're in a situation, I can open with this big, powered from the shoulder cut. There I am. I have control. I am in the bind. Maybe I've got strong on weak. I can try and thrust. Suddenly I'm clear. I could do a cut number 2, but I don't have time to wind up and do a big cut number 2. Suddenly I disengage, the opponent's point is away, but I can just do a powerful cut from the wrist. I get in, I strike, I deliver that cut, and it's quicker. So more power in this big shoulder cut, medium power and faster, less power, much faster. So your cuts matter. So when you're doing your cutting exercises, now this really only works for, or I should say, mostly works for single-handed sword. And of course you could use a side sword, you could use an arming sword, you could use a messer, you could have a wide array of weapons that you want, and it works with a stick as well. If you're using stick, you should be able to do these small motions. There. So you should get used to cutting not just with your shoulder, but with just the elbow, and then with just the wrist. So shoulder, elbow, wrist, big cut. Elbow, wrist, smaller cut. Wrist, smallest cut. But remember, shorter the distance, the faster the delivery. I mean, it makes sense in so many things. And I always like to tell students, remember, what is the shortest distance between 2 points? A straight line. So you want to have a short, straight line to the target. And remember, human beings feel pain. So if you hit the target, now if you're just sparring, you've got all the gear on, your sparring partner should be respectful enough to say, yeah, I felt the hit. Stop, reset, go. If it were real, then there would be pain, nerves would be firing, blood would be flowing, gross stuff would be happening. So even that little dip, that little cut from the wrist with a sharp sword is going to do a lot. And so this is something important to practice. So we want to build on all the little skills that we develop, especially as we look at systems, and they can apply to all sorts of different systems. It's not just 19th century saber, although I use it because it's where in our club we've practiced that the most. But like I said, I could do these little cuts. And you can do them in sequence. You don't have to. I can do 1, 4. I can do 1, 3. I can change up how I do the cuts. Remember, they are numbered. You don't have to go in order. You can make up your own schemes and plans. It's not just Myers square, but it's any kind of... I can go, oh, I want to do a 1 followed by an 8 followed by a 7. Does that work? And play with it and see which cuts lead to which cuts. If you're in the middle of sparring, a big shoulder cut 1, wrist cut 4, up, and just a little flick because you can get in with it. That could be what wins you the fight. I mean, whether it's sparring against someone, you're just getting the hit, it's a tournament, or if we're looking historically and we're writing a book or having a movie or something like that, that little quick movement is what does it. Now, of course, on film, we want big movements so the audience can see. But in reality, little movements, quick movements, make a big difference, and that is what's going to win you the fight. But you do need to build those muscles. You need to get the tendons and joints used to that motion and that feeling. So again, it's not just big cuts from the shoulder. We're going to practice just cutting from the wrist. A little faster. Works well, right? And then, of course, just little wrist cuts. Like I said, you can do exercises with the sword or any kind of weight, but not a free weight, not like a dumbbell, but something where the balance is ahead of your hand so that you can get used to that as to what it would be with a sword. Because the balance point of the saber is way out here. So it might be lighter than the 15-pound, 7-kilogram weight that I exercise with, but it's still going to put a strain on everything because the balance point and the muscles are engaging it differently, and the tendons are pulled differently, and everything is working. Instead of having a weight centered in the hand, it's going to pull differently. And that's what makes swords feel heavy, by the way. People say, oh, swords are heavy. Well, no, they're actually quite light. If you hold the sword this way, you feel, oh, it's extremely light. You hold it this way and you say, oh, and now it starts to feel heavy. And that's all because of where that balance point is. It's all physics. Geometry, physics, that's what sword fighting is about. So you find that that point of balance is further out, it makes it feel a lot heavier on the arm. But anyway, just something to practice, something to look at, expanding your repertoire. If you're doing saber or arming sword or side sword, it could work with a rapier, it could work with any kind of single-handed tool you're using. If you're using two hands on it, I won't go and grab a two-handed sword for the moment, but if you're using two hands, you can practice a little bit with just elbows and wrists as well. It's a little trickier to do, but it's something that you could add in. But I just want to talk about single-handed sword and looking at different ways of delivering those same 8 cuts that really get us to practice so we can move the sword in smaller circles and really build those muscles, really get used to it, and develop that skill so that when you have that chance, speed can be on your side. And speed is always going to outclass strength in a sword fight. If you can hit, and you've got a sword, and you've got technique, doesn't matter how powerful, how strong that person is swinging a big heavy sword at you, you've already hit. You've made contact first, their body reacts, that changes the whole dynamic of the fight. So, strength is important, but strength in support of speed is what we want. Not just strength to power through things. That's not what we want. Strength so that we can be fast, small movements that are quick, nimble, effective. That's what we're looking at. Alright, so that's what I wanted to talk about this week, just as an add-on to our video from a little bit ago. Thank you very much for watching. Do remember, like, subscribe, and most importantly, comments, because your comments help build with the content on the channel, and it is about me providing stuff for you. That's why you're my friends. I'm here to give you the information that you're looking for about swords and axes and armor and all sorts of good stuff. So remember, let me know what you're looking for, and I'll try and put up videos about that. So again, my thanks. Do take care, stay safe, see you on the next one, and keep on swinging.